Hi everyone. I haven't been on the blog or on camera on my website for ages. But I actually, today I felt like recording a video for you guys. There's so much I want to share and so much I want to talk about and write in the form of posts, but I haven't had really the time or headspace to do it, which will be happening over the next few weeks. But for now, I really wanted to come in and say hello and just check in with you guys and just share a tip. My reason for sharing this particular tip is because in the last few weeks, but in particular the last few days, I've noticed myself getting anxious. Now, this is not new. I do get anxious over time, time and time again, and I usually know the trigger, or I know what is sort of the underlying cause of the anxiety, but recently it has been more sort of a kind of dull anxiety that's, like in my chest, like my heart beating faster, or that kind of being on edge and not really knowing why. And I can identify a few things in my week that are probably causing me to feel a little more uncertain and uncomfortable and probably challenging my comfort zone for sure. So I can attribute the anxiety to those events, but that's it. It just doesn't feel enough. It just doesn't feel like it's in proportion to the experience I'm having. And I know, for example, that things like drinking too much coffee, which I'm totally guilty of, but also not willing to change too much. I know stuff like that does affect it. So if you're experiencing that, be mindful of, what you're eating and what you're doing. And anyway, the point is that I started noticing this, and I actually shared it with my husband, and he said, "Why don't you meditate?" Which totally annoyed me because obviously I should do that. And meditation is definitely something that over time helps, but sometimes when you are experiencing this sort of more intense anxiety, it can be very, very difficult to sit quietly and observe your thoughts. And I know a lot of people talk about this, especially now when I've just shared my free course, the 7 days, a free meditation course, and I know some of you have said that it's great because there's various different tips and various different meditation types that basically mean that you can pick and choose what sort of meditation you're able to do on any given day. So I'm getting sidetracked, so I'm going to go back to my anxiety. So the tip that I want to share is that daily check-in. So the ability to notice when you're starting to go into this spiral, right? The ability to notice when something is causing you that, the moment, or maybe you don't notice in that moment. A lot of the time I don't notice straight away, but the ability to be able to say, okay, wait a minute, I've gone completely out of myself. I'm in this up here in my head, and I'm totally out of my own space, right? My own place in here. And the ability to see that, to notice that, is for me the key. Yeah. So awareness is so important when you're starting to experience something like that. But once you catch yourself, what do you do? So I wanted to share what I tend to do when something like this happens. And it doesn't have to be anxiety. It can be any other kind of challenging emotion. So I call it a daily check-in. It doesn't have to be a daily check-in. It can be at any point check-in. And there's sort of three things that I tend to do. So when I notice myself going into that uncomfortable place, I pause. So whatever happens, I pause and I take stock. So pausing and taking stock for me might be closing my eyes and noticing where I feel whatever it is that I'm feeling. Where is it in my body? So ask yourself, how is my body feeling? Where is it? Yeah? How is my breath feeling? What's going on? Where do I feel the breath? And which part of my body is tense? Which part of my body is responding to this emotion that I'm feeling? And the second thing that I do is then breathe. So I know I talk about breath all the time, but it is the most important thing. So once I've noticed and I've identified, okay, what's going on? What is it that's changed in my physical body? Then I pause and I make space for it in the breath. So usually I don't really change the breath. It really depends, but for the purpose of today and the daily check-in, I would recommend just allowing the breath to be as it is, but just watching it. So taking this whole thing, the daily check-in can be 5 minutes, but taking like a couple of minutes just to breathe, just to notice the breath, the in and out. And it may be that your breath is quite fast, so that can be the challenge there. And rather than seeing this as a meditation, which can be quite uncomfortable, see it as a sort of a pause and as a taking stock exercise. So asking yourself, where do I feel this? Where in my body am I responding? Pause for your breath. And number 3, ask yourself, what is it that I need? And if you ask yourself before taking stock, your mind will come up with all sorts of ridiculous answers like, I don't know, escape or avoid the things that you don't want to do. And it may still come up with those. But hopefully by raising the awareness of what's going on in your body, what's being triggered, and giving yourself a few moments to breathe, then the answer can come from a little lower. So taking a moment to ask yourself, what is it that I really need at this moment in time? What would ground me, or what would help me to feel more whole? What would help me to feel more supported in this moment? So the answers can range from taking a break, taking a walk, doing the meditation, or going for a run if you run, doing some stretches, shaking. It could be calling someone and asking for help. It could be emailing your boss and saying, I need some support with that. So many answers. So my job here is not to tell you what to do. There's a lot of noise outside, so I'm going to pause. So my job is not to tell you what to do, but actually to give you a few ways that you can find out yourself what you need. And I think this is the most important tool of all, to be able to check in, go back within yourself. So you're not looking outside for answers. You're going back and you're asking the person who's truly the expert, what is it that I truly need right now? Give yourself space, see what comes up. Sometimes answers will come and sometimes they won't. So that might also be something to be mindful of, that sometimes a non-answer is equally important. Making space for that is important. So I'm going to pause here, a brief hello from me. I hope this was really helpful, and I'm going to put a little summary below if you don't have time to watch the whole video. And I hopefully will see you soon. Bye.